Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time to review The Iron Claw, directed by Sean Durkin. This is Sean Durkin's third feature after Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, and The Nest, both of which I think are very good films. And here, this is by far his most accessible film yet, telling the story of the Von Erichs, real wrestling family, plagued by a curse, if you will. Really, the film is about a father and the way that he pushes his children into wrestling and into being great at the sport, and then how both he and the mother, really have no attention to the children's actual needs and the consequences of what that looks like. I think it is relevant for that conversation of what masculinity means, grooming somebody in a certain way to live up to a masculine standard. Yeah, you could also call it an American exceptionalism thing too if you want. It was a very well crafted film, and Sean Durkin at the helm, I expected this to maybe be a little more indie feeling or even cold, as his style from Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene seemed to indicate that he was more interested in observing and being at a distance. Here, I feel like he really dove into the heart of the story, and certainly tear-jerking moments and even heartwarming scenes are no challenge for this director. It packs an emotional wallop in both directions of just pure haunting tragedy and uplifting joy and hope. And I think nailing that spectrum for this family was extremely important when it comes to telling this story in a loving way, in a compassionate way, because it has the potential to be so sensationalized. It gives all of the children in this family such humanity, very touching in the way that it shows brotherhood. And overall, what I felt like I took away was just a very well-rounded portrait of who this family was. And it really had me in tears in two particular scenes towards the end, which I really didn't expect. Resisting the urge to have some sort of catharsis during those tragic scenes instead of just letting us feel the weight of it was also a really wise choice. I think you could have done it in a way that doesn't feel organic because you're kind of afraid of losing the audience with how fucking horrible what happens is. I went to the movie, I sat with that, and then I somehow in the end felt like it organically lifted me out of it just a little bit, but the right amount. Yeah, I think where the movie is so powerful is that it understands that at the center of this tragedy is love. I heard that this movie had a real tearjerker knockout of an ending, but if a movie is just sad and I'm just meant to feel bad about something, it doesn't work on me. And despite all that I had heard about this story and what I thought was coming, those moments in the end hit in a way that I did not expect. The movie really triumphs in the ending. There were times in this movie where I felt maybe something a little lacking. Mostly in the first half, I was kind of wondering, are we gonna delve deeper into the characters or get a little more specific about some of these people? In the end, I'm not really sure I can fault the movie for the approach that it went for. I don't think it gets so specific about its characters, and maybe I would have liked to film more if it did that, but I think in terms of how it portrays and tributes this family on a more broad sense, I think it does that perfectly. I kind of disagree with you on the first act. I felt like I was invested and was just made to care about all the people I'm seeing. We were talking about Zac Efron's performance and the way that he's sort of restrained, he's kind of there, but he's kind of not. There's something off about him, but at the same time, he's very sincere and very forward. He's kind of a simple person. You could say basic, but I would say simple because he has a depth to him. I don't know how much I felt that I should have come away thinking that he's a simple person or not. I think simple is not a bad thing. I know it isn't, but I also don't know if I think that's necessarily that true of people. I will say that the character of Mike Von Erich, I really liked that character. I felt like I got to know him and the way that he was different from his other brothers and where his ambitions clash with the family. And I really liked the actor who played him. I thought that was one of the best performances, right up there with all these actors who have name recognition. I did think that Holt McNally's character as the father, and the actor is very good in it, but there was something about his dialogue, and maybe this is true to the character to some extent, where he's just very straightforward with when he says things, but the dialogue felt very simplistic for that character, where he'd be like, now you're gonna join the team, because I already tried it with this one, and the reason I'm doing this is because when this happened, and he's almost expositioning, and so I understand what you're saying, but I kind of liked it because he puts forward so plainly the race that he wants everybody to compete in, which is the one that he's creating. And it shows that all of the brothers understand how this operates because it's not a secret. And he tells us when we're not living up, and he tells us when we are doing well. It feels like it was the character to do that, but I also kind of get what you're saying. While the actor embodied the dad and who he was very well. It was almost too on the nose with what I'd expect that character to look like.
Yeah, maybe that's...
I kind of wish I could see something else besides that stern father in him that would make me maybe like him or just feel some unexpected way about him, even though he's just such a bastard. Like,
yeah, it was very stern father. It was very like what I've seen of that archetype before.
You know, I can think of J.K. Simmons and Whiplash as maybe a sort of comparable character. And there's something about him in that movie where he's a little charming and he's funny. Sometimes he's smiling at you and you like don't know whether you can lean into that or trust him or not. I wasn't really wrestling with that with this character.
I also will say I think Sean Durkin's direction really fit this story, and that I think his style works when there is some kind of ominous presence looming over his characters. It does this very well in The Nest, and in this movie, when the characters started to feel the weight of this curse, I felt that through the direction and the coloring and the director's signature slow zooms.
There were some camera angles and compositions that seemed very thoughtful. There's a shot when the dad is instructing his sons and they're all like sitting kind of on a bench, and I loved that this was a sort of overhead view of them. That was like the perfect angle for that scene to just show how dwarfed they feel in his presence. Another shot I really loved is when all the brothers are together at a wedding and we're just slowly like panning over each one of their faces while they're doing square dancing or something. There were just some really like beautiful ways that I felt like the cinematography was bringing the characters together. They chose to show a conversation in a bathroom in like one take. There was like a toilet bowl where, you know, something gross happened in it. And there were some times in the scene when like the character's arm was like this and it was blocking your view of the toilet. And it's because when you're supposed to be thinking about their bond and how they're coming together, you don't want to see the toilet. Simple stuff like that. It was very well thought out.
I also thought the score was pretty good. It had
the score was really good. Zac Efron's performance here, really excellent. Like, I was surprised how good he was in this film. There's a scene when he's talking to his girlfriend, like they're on a first date. And I remember like really watching him and being like, I can kind of get lost in this character. I really can. He felt like he understood who he was at a very deep level, was kind of in love with this character, and I couldn't see anyone except for who that was. I think the director pulled out this ability for Zac Efron to be like very sincere, very likable, despite a very masculine and rough exterior. I think he just plays that softness really well and that sincerity. The supporting cast was really good. The mom was great.
Maura Tierney, you remember she was in Beautiful Boy? Underrated actress.
Yeah, she was very good in this. She really was. Harris Dickinson was also great here.
He was.
Like, I expected more Jeremy Allen White, but he was very much in the first half of this film. And Jeremy Allen White's great here, but I found his character to be a little less memorable.
Also good, Lily James.
Good wrestling scenes, too. Oh, the shot when Zac Efron's, like, bouncing back and forth between... Yeah. Excellent shot, just like creating mood and creating tension from him doing one of his like wrestling warm-ups and the sound in that scene. My tears were very jerked here. I kind of fell in love with this movie. I would give it a 9 out of 10.
I give the movie a very high 8 out of 10. Now, many people have been dismayed that this movie hasn't been doing well so far this awards season. Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, like completely ignored. There's a lot of Best Actor buzz for Zac Efron. I'm not sure there's that much buzz in other categories aside from like Best Picture.
Yeah.
But I will say there have been plenty of years where by this time of the year, you know, late December, early January, we're saying, oh, the studio fucked up. They released the movie at the wrong time. If only they had done it earlier. They're not getting their screeners out. And then... boom, Phantom Thread happens. American Sniper happens.
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah, Judas and the Black Messiah and The Father. People were saying about those movies. So really, you don't know that the Academy can't bite this movie at the end of the day. Or like go for Zac Efron.
Maybe it gets PGA or it gets a SAG nomination.
Yeah, so your Zac Efron gets into SAG or something. Like, I actually don't know that I'd be predicting that necessarily. I think that the weakness of the movie is maybe just the lack of categories I can see it in overall outside of just Best Actor, Best Picture.
I agree with that, unfortunately. I think it's an excellent film, but it is hard to see what categories it could wiggle its way into, especially since this year seems more crowded than a normal year in Best Picture. It has something awardsy about it. It has prestige. It's an intriguing story. It's not boring. It's not isolating.
Fucking tearjerker.
Yeah,
tell you that
tearjerker.
Zac Efron's been drumming up a lot of hype on Twitter. I don't know if that'll like work, but... you know, there's a world where he steals in Best Actor, but Best Actor is crowded, so...
you have to knock out Leonardo DiCaprio in Killers to justify, like, him getting in there. Because I can't see anyone else getting it unless it was an insane snub.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Is your dad, like, watching you and your brothers compete like racehorses?